Okay, sorry, my doorbell was pushed and I was trying to see who it was in the first recording. And then when I switched back over to finish this recording, I couldn't get it done. So anyway, where I was going was that I don't think, Jesus is just sharing all the details of the book of Revelation, where, in Matthew 24, when he's talking about, if those days weren't shortened, not even the elect would survive. I think he's mentioning specifically Israel, and that, he's talking about Israel would not survive is a possibility. Now, I think we in the church are also God's elect, but, I kind of agree with what I've studied so far is that, we are God's chosen ones, but there's still a remnant in Israel that is set to be elect. It's probably specifically the 144,000 that are called out of every tribe in Israel. Now, again, Matthew 24 doesn't have all the details, and this is part 2, so check out part 1 to get the full picture of what I was kind of saying for this particular episode. But part 2, I just want to continue the discussion of, are we in the last days? And I think the answer is yes, we are in the last days, and we're getting closer and closer to the tribulation. But I think there are still some things on the to-do list, the prophecy to-do list, that we're, I think, in the process of seeing it take place. I think some of the things that God mentions that he's doing or will do can't always be done in one day. Maybe it could, because nothing's too hard for God. But, I think it takes some time for things to really take place and shape up. And so, I think we do see birth pains, wars and rumors of wars. We see famines, pestilence, earthquakes. And then we just see other things taking place, this whole thing with robotics and this whole thing with digital currency. And, I think these things are going to shape the atmosphere of the tribulation. But I do like to try to keep an open mind in regards to end times. I don't think one particular person says it right all the time except God. I think we all have our little beliefs about what we believe is going to happen. And I think we're just going to have to wait to see, really. But it does give us a good discussion as we do wait. I think the things that are happening in Israel now could very well shape up to be, what causes, some of the events in Revelation to take place. Like, Israel basically has to have an atmosphere for the Antichrist to rule, bring a covenant between them and the rest of the world to, basically, make a peace treaty with Israel. And I think the wars that Israel is going through can shape up to someone to take up the task of being the Antichrist. And says, hey, let's make a deal. And I think that the temple is supposed to be built. Now, sometimes when the Bible talks about temples, it can also be mentioning our body. But I think the scriptures do indicate that another Jewish temple is going to be built. And that's where the sacrilegious object of Daniel takes place. Now, I do think that God's going to take care of us, There are instances where sometimes God has another part of his plan where we may face trouble in some way, shape, or form. But, there also are plenty of examples that show that, when someone is in a right relationship with God, God will go out of his way to protect us. And I do think that the church is righteous, a good portion of the church, and I do believe that God is not just going to let everyone be a martyr. And so, I do think there is a good reason for us to believe that God is going to rapture us before that time. Now, as every day gets more and more crazy, we also can have a mindset that, things aren't as crazy as they seem. And that's never really good, to look at the condition of the world and think that it's not as bad as, we think it is. I think that, there's already huge things that have been happening in the world that indicate it's, going to continue down this bad road. And so I don't agree with people in the church saying that the church is necessarily going to. I believe the Bible does talk about the church taking over the world, and specifically Jesus. But I don't think, we are going to make the world better apart from Jesus and, somehow conquer the world apart from the work of Christ, like single-handedly or something. And so I do believe that we're getting closer to the time of the tribulation, but I just don't know, no one knows the day or the hour. No one knows when that's going to happen. And so, but I do think that, when the Bible says the end of all things is at hand, I don't think we have reason to think that, these signs don't mean anything, that it's just another normal day. And because we don't know the day or the hour, we can put off our hope for some far distant, future. But, I think that we have a lot of things to really encourage us to say, wow, Christ must be coming soon. And while the world continues to doubt, while the world continues to ignore, and they think that they're going to figure out these problems, we know that, God is against them, that God is not going to let them figure out the problems. And it may very well may be possible to figure out some of these problems, but, they ignore the existence of God, which I just think is not a smart thing to do at all. If you're claiming to be smart and wise, to ignore an invisible being that has all power, and and you wonder how some crazy stuff is happening, that's just not a smart thing to do, as, people on this earth, to really ignore those things and to ignore God. And thank God we have the Bible to tell us what God is like and who he is. But, I can sort of understand why God can seemingly be so harsh on the unbelieving world, because, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and it's all stemmed from a mindset of disbelief or unbelief or refusing to believe. And so for us to live on this planet and ignore an invisible being, it's kind of like those movies like Godzilla, or I would say Jurassic Park, where, not to say that God is a vicious dinosaur, lurking, but, it's kind of like, there's one of the newest Jurassic Park movies where, there's this dinosaur that can camouflage and basically be invisible. And so they go into the cage mistakenly thinking that the dinosaur jumped over the cage that was in. And then they realize that no, it was just camouflaged. And they realized how much danger they were in, but it was already basically too late. They were inside the cage thinking that the dinosaur jumped out of the cage and it wasn't there, but the whole time it was just watching them. And so, again, not to paint a negative picture of God, but I'm just saying that, to think that we're living in this world and not being watched, very closely, I think that is one of the downsides of, humanity, is that, when we talk about, some people live by the whole survival of the fittest type of thing. And when you talk about, being, this take on the world type of mentality, well, to ignore one of the, I guess, if you want to keep in the same category of, to ignore the biggest predator, out there, is really dumb to do. So anyway, I think we're getting closer and closer to the end times, but, we don't know. I could go to my grave before we see, Israel and the world get to the place of the tribulation, that's how I think, I don't always trust everyone who says, the rapture is this year, or, end times events, the tribulation is, already happening, or, I don't trust those things, because, no particular sign really points to a particular day or hour, because we cannot know the day or hour. But, we could get raptured tonight. I think that's a possibility, that's not too far out there. I think when people are putting urgency on our Christian message, I think that's definitely necessary and needed, And so, anyway, thanks for your time. Thanks for just listening to this part 2 of the message. Check out part 1. I read a lot of Matthew 24, verses 1 through 30. And so, thanks so much, and I will talk to you on the next one. See ya.